You then moved on to Birmingham, Lou. A very short stay there, but also very successful.
Well, I'd gone to Birmingham, and the first thing that was made perfectly clear to me, it was actually like a lot of my clubs, Swindon, they had no money at all. It was made clear to me there I couldn't go and sign anybody, so forget about the transfer market. I went to Birmingham and they had no money. That was made clear to me. Samish Kumar was the owner, and I knew Samish from Manchester. He was a Manchester lad. Met at a service station, cup of tea, sandwich, and asked me if I wanted to be the manager at Birmingham City, who had been struggling at the time, and made it clear there would be no contract. But he said to me, if we do any good, I'll look after you. That was his exact words, and I said, right, you've got a deal, I'll start on Monday. Went in there, as you would imagine with everything at a club where they've got no money and the team's not doing well, there wasn't a great deal to look forward to, I didn't think, but I thought, well, we've got to have a go, and there are a bunch of players that I thought would have a go. A lot of them eventually came to Stoke when I went to Stoke as a manager. So quickly, within probably 3 or 4 months, we're at Wembley. It's all starting to happen for the club in terms of Wembley brings in finance that's needed. Wembley brings in other things where you can cash in financially. And that's without winning the trophy itself. So we go to Wembley, we reap the rewards of being there, which is the financial side, puts the club back on a sound footing financially, and we go there and we win, which helps as well, because there's everything after the game. There's the sponsorship for the new season, and we looked on course to have turned the corner. Chairman was delighted at the fact that we won, and we were at Wembley. Told me it was the best day of his life. Told me to come in on the Monday morning to see him, and it was back to the non-contract that I got, but a contract of some kind, which was, I'll look after you. So we're in there on the Monday, having spoken to 2 or 3 people in the game about, what's the manager's bonus for getting to Wembley and winning it in that cup competition. And the manager that I spoke to said £25,000 possibly. And if he's feeling generous, £30,000. So in the Monday, no big deal to me. I wasn't really bothered what I got on the figures that I'd mentioned. And he gave me an envelope and thanked me again. Best day of my life, he said to me again. Went outside, opened the envelope, and there was a cheque for £1,200. To say I got the hump was an understatement. Went straight back in. I said, Samish, I think you might need that more than I need it, and it's a bit of an insult. Gave him the cheque back, and he got his chequebook out and said, what do you want? And I'll give you it. And I said, no, there's not a cheque you could write out for me now that I'll accept. So I said, right, I'm off. So he said, where are you going? I said, I've no idea, but I'm off, I'm not staying. And made myself obviously redundant without a job immediately, and got home and I told my wife what I'd done, and she said, you're mad. And I said, well, you've known that for a while, so it's no shock. Sat at home and thought, right, where do I go from here? Phone rang, I think, a couple of days later. It was Peter Coates at Stoke, and asked me if I'd be interested in the job at Stoke. I think at the time they'd been interviewing people. I'm not sure if they'd made their mind up, but Peter said they hadn't made their mind up on somebody for the job, and invited me to a board meeting to see what I thought and what they thought of me and what I thought of them. Went to the meeting, and what I did know about Stoke was when I'd been there to play, it was a horrible, nasty place to go to. They made it uncomfortable for you. Good support, and I liked the idea of those things that I've just mentioned, the crowd being what they were. And I always remember coming out of that little tunnel, and as soon as you walk down that short little tunnel onto the pitch, very hostile. And I thought before I went to interview, if I get this job, if I got a chance again, I'm definitely taking it. I knew about the boothing end and everything else about them. And I just remembered coming as a Manchester United player, it wasn't nice coming, and I liked that. And I took the view that the support, especially at the Victoria ground, would be, which is where we were at the time, would be a big help to us. Even if we didn't have a great team, that help from the crowd would get us points that it does do when you've got a fanatical crowd like that. Got the job, went in, and I knew I had a little bit of rebuilding to do, and I was more interested to try and find out why they hadn't done as well as I thought they should have done. Took my own view on why they hadn't done as well as I thought, and we set out to rectify that. And to do that, it's not as simple as it may sound. You need any manager needs the support of the most important people, which are the players. And if they come along and don't like the idea of what you're trying to do, they'll down tools, and we've seen it more nowadays than probably it existed back at the time when I went to Stoke. Players did work hard, did respond to most managers, but if they got on a losing run, which can happen, and it did happen at Stoke, then you find yourself in trouble and the manager's replaced. But I had a good feel for the overall attitude when we started training. Good feel for their attitude and a good feel for what they could possibly do. Brought one or two players in from Birmingham because I knew the ones from Birmingham, and I knew what they would do for me. And here we go. We're on our way to try and transform the results for the football club into better results, and hopefully gradually improve in other areas, in all areas of the football club. But what I did know was we had a support behind us that would help us achieve that as well. So we start playing our games, and I think it's fair to say that we get a reputation of being hard to beat. We get a reputation of being uncompromising, which I like that as well. And I think it's fair to say the players themselves built themselves a reputation of giving their all, which was always felt in the area that I was coming to manage. The football club was one of the main ingredients. Give your all, work hard, and there'll be, even if you lose, there will be a forgiving crowd. And I think during my time, I think that's what happened. We got on good runs. We lost games when people expected us to win, but the crowd stuck with the team because I think they saw an honest bunch of players, and all the great moments we had were great, were fantastic. And I think if you ask any manager at the end of their managerial career, where was the place you enjoyed most to manage at, the managers will always say where they felt the most comfortable, where they felt the most welcomed, and of course where they got good results. And without a doubt, all those things applied to my time at Stoke. And we feared nobody. Even games we lost, I can remember thinking, if things had just gone a little bit better, we'd have beaten Liverpool tonight, we'd have beaten somebody tonight. And you know, that was at a time where there wasn't that many great shocks in football at the time. The big teams were the big teams. The teams that were trying to get to become bigger teams and bigger clubs were, like ourselves, were trying to force our way up league tables. But when you got into FA Cup games and things like that, the players I had rose to the occasion and on most of the times, most of the occasions, and gave their all, and the crowd responded to it every game. But the one game that sticks out in my mind is Manchester United at the Victoria ground, because it's Manchester United, it's my old club, and it's Alex Ferguson, who's got a great reputation as a manager. Teams, lineups of the big clubs never changed in those days, because it was whatever cup it was, same team. And I remember hoping it would be changed, and got the team sheet in. Actually Mark Hughes played centre forward with Brian McClare. Brian Robson played in midfield. Peter Schmeichel played at the back, goalkeeper rather for the club. Pallister. Things didn't change on the night. I thought, we've got it all to do here. But we won, and the 2 goals that Mark Steen got were 2 fantastic goals. The ground erupted on the night, because I don't think there was a great liking for Manchester United at the time, or there's ever been. So the place erupted in the night, and that was, along with lots of memorable games, that was probably the best.
Well, for a lot of Stoke fans that will be watching this, certainly myself included, of that generation, Stoke was struggling at the time, and it was the first seeds were sown to changing that around and moving the club in the right direction. Certainly we had success that first season with the Autoglass Trophy win, just missed out in the playoffs for promotion, but certainly the year after is when it all certainly took off. And you say you surround yourselves with characters. One of the biggest and best signings that you say you made was, of course, Neil Baldwin.
Yeah, yeah. Along came Neil Baldwin. Come out of the ground one day, and there was a load of people there. It was very early on in my start at Stoke, wishing me all the best. And he was one of, as you see in the film, he was one of probably about 15. And that was in the morning, and it was when I come out last thing at night. It'd been raining all day, and they'd all gone, quite rightly so, except he had stayed. And I thought, oh, he's still here, this guy. I need to find out a bit more about him. So I went over and had a chat with him and said, why are you still here? And he said, well, Stoke's my team, and I want to wish you all the best. He'd already wished me all the best first thing in the morning, so he stayed all day. And I said, right, tell me a bit more about you. And he said, well, circus clown. And he said, but I've just been sacked. And that made me laugh. That he was a circus clown, and I'd never heard of a clown in a circus getting the sack. So I did laugh, not at him or anything, but I was just laughing inward to myself. And I thought, this is a bit of a character, this fella. And he's a circus clown. It may work in the dressing room if I bring him into the club. It may work in the dressing room having a clown in there, an entertainer. So I thought about it for a few minutes. Again, as you see in the film, I'm pausing, I'm thinking at the same time, and I just thought, so I said to him, how'd you like to work for me? And he said, what as? And I just thought something up, and I said, kit man. And he said, right, when do I start? And I said, Monday morning. And he goes away, probably the happiest man in Stoke that day. And I go away thinking, what have I done? I just employed a circus clown who's just got the sack. Anyway, but my gut feeling was he was going to be in that dressing room when it's not going so good and things are happening like they do at all football clubs, that he's going to play a major part in keeping us alive, keeping us happy, keeping us... So he came in the Monday, and before the players come in, I took him to the costume shop in Hanley and looked at all the costumes. And the best one I could find was a chicken outfit. So I got a chicken outfit, went back to the ground and said, now you're going to have to wear this, not all the time, I said just today, to introduce you to the players. And got the players together at 10 o'clock or whenever, sat them in the dressing room and said, lads, we've got a new kit man. So they're all sitting there waiting for this new kit man to come in. So I come in with this guy in a chicken outfit with a chicken beak, chicken head, and I can see them all sitting there saying, you know, what's happening? And eventually we took the chicken head off and I introduced Neil, and it worked. It worked. He was, because it was his team, he'd do anything for us, he'd do anything for the players. In the dressing room, character like I expect him to be. What I didn't see coming was his time at Stoke, along with my time at Stoke, one day developing into a film. Now, when he told me that, I thought he'd lost the plot. I thought he's been speaking to too many people and he's lost sight of what we actually did at Stoke in terms of football and that, because it's not going to be a film. And to my surprise, what happened was it was a film. He told me we were going to win an Oscar, a BAFTA rather, and I thought, no, he is going crazy now. But the writer was a genius. He managed to put it all together like he did, and the outcome was that we did win a BAFTA. And every time I'm with Neil now, he keeps saying, I did tell you, didn't I? So definitely it was a good decision to bring him on board for a number of reasons, and it worked.